Some say that it is a 100-foot-long shark that is very dark, has a large tail, and weighs 100,000 pounds. It attacks boats and steals from fishermen and is so scary that when fishermen spotted it in 1918, they refused to go to the sea for several weeks. Could such an enormous predator still be lurking in the oceans? Or is this just another maritime legend? And if this monster is still there, can it be a megalodon that is still roaming the high seas and devouring entire whales? To answer this question, in this video, we are going to investigate if there is any reliable evidence like sightings, photos, video and sonar recordings, or remaining bones that show they are still around. Megalodon, or Audidus megalodon, is a giant shark that appeared in the oceans almost 23 million years ago in the early Miocene epoch. It was an apex predator and could grow up to 65 feet in length and was one of the largest predators to have ever existed. It could swim very fast because of its robust body and large pectoral fins. The reconstructed jaws of the Megalodon shows that they could open it to a whopping width of around 7 feet and a height of 9 feet. Some of its teeth were over 7 inches long and had serrated edges, so it could easily slice through the flesh of large prey. With an estimated bite force of up to 40,000 pounds, Megalodon was a formidable hunter in its warm coastal habitats. It was such an effective killer that it could devour an entire killer whale with just 5 bites. With all these specifications, we are lucky that scientists believe that Megalodon went extinct 3.6 million years ago. But what about all the sightings and evidence that point to its existence? There are frequent sightings of large sharks throughout the history. These reports are about odd things like partly decomposed whales and large sharks that wash ashore from time to time and make for good sea monster stories. This image is a classic example of a monstrous shark. It was published in Harper's Weekly and shows a giant shark with a huge dorsal fin that was washed ashore near Eastport in Maine. Some people claim that it may be a megalodon, but the person who painted it was not present in the scene, and similar to many other old paintings, it was only painted based on the descriptions of those who saw it. The artist was probably not very loyal to those descriptions and made his own touches and added legs to the creature. So, even though there have been various enormous carcasses discovered in history that could have been the putrefied carcasses of gigantic sharks like Megalodon, they are mixed with myths, very similar to the Black Demon and the Lord of the Deep, which I mentioned at the beginning of the video. Those in the Sea of Cortez, off the Baja California of Mexico, claim to be familiar with a giant shark which they call El Demonio Negro, or the Black Demon, and say that it is 60 feet long, with dark color and a massive tail. Also, Polynesian fishermen believe in the Lord of the Deep, which is a gigantic white shark with about 100 feet in length. Even though these stories are fascinating, they are mixed with myth and fiction. Other than narratives from fishermen of several generations before, there is barely any reliable document that could prove the existence of these enormous sharks. So perhaps better documented sighting claims could be more helpful. In fact, there are a few relatively recent documents that relate to observing enormous sharks. Because there are many of these claims, I only talk about some of the more recognized and better documented sightings that are reported in the Encyclopedia of Cryptozoology. The most famous alleged sighting of a gigantic shark occurred in 1918 near Port Stephens in New South Wales. Some fishermen there said that their heavy crayfish pots had been towed away by an enormous, ghostly white shark with almost unbelievable proportions. The men were all unanimous that this shark was something the like of which they had never dreamed of. When the fishermen saw the shark, they immediately weighed anchor and fled back to port, and they refused to go out to sea again for some time. They gave varying estimates of the shark's size that ranged from 115 and 300 feet and even more. So, the shark must have been something really gigantic to put these experienced men into such a state of fear and panic. The next incidents are reported by Zane Grey, the famous novelist, and his son Lauren. Zane claimed in his book to have seen a huge shark when he was sailing. The shark was longer than his 40-foot boat and had a square head, very large pectoral fins, and a greenish-yellow body speckled with white. Even though he was an experienced fisherman, he could not identify the species of the shark. Zane's son, Lauren, also saw a gigantic shark. When he was traveling with his father aboard the SS Manganui in 1933 or 1934, they saw a shark that was at least 40 to 50 feet long. It was yellowish, barnacled with white flecks, and had a massive head of 10 to 12 feet across, and a large brown tail with a distinctive white purplish-green appearance and large brown spots. He said that it was not similar to other shark species that he knew. This sighting made Zane very happy, because now he had many more eyewitnesses to back his claim of seeing a similar strange shark in 1931. In 1954, a ship with the name of Rachel Cohen was allegedly attacked by an enormous shark. This attack happened during a storm near Timor, Indonesia. The bite marks left on the ship's hull had a semicircle shape which is typical of a shark bite. The circle was about 7 feet in diameter, and a number of teeth or teeth marks were discovered with 4 inches and 3.5 inches wide at the base. A shark with such a large jaw and teeth was estimated to have been 78 feet long. Many people reported sighting enormous sharks during the next couple of decades. All these sightings are related to sharks that are significantly larger than Deep Blue. She is the largest known existing great white shark, with 20 feet in length and over 4,500 pounds in weight. So, these encounters could potentially be related to Megalodon. But same as the earlier images, it is challenging to analyze these alleged sightings. After all, they were influenced by human communication, memory, and cognition limitations. There are some inconsistencies in these stories. For example, in the case of Zane and his son, in an interview around 60 years after the sighting, Lauren mentioned that he saw the shark in 1931, a few days after his father did. But earlier, he mentioned that it was 1933 or 4, though this could happen to anyone who recalls an event after 60 years. Also, the case of Rachel Cohen's ship is not totally accurate, though, because the attack timeline doesn't match the life of the vessel. The shark attack on Rachel Cohen occurred in 1954, but the ship was reported to have burned and sunk in Darwin Harbor on January 15, 1924, which was 30 years before the attack. The story might still be true if the ship didn't actually sink in 1924, and the fire was falsely reported. An alternative explanation is that another ship was built or renamed to Rachel Cohen, but I didn't find anything online about a different ship with this name. It isn't easy to trust these sightings because identifying the shape and size of a fish from outside the water is difficult due to light refraction and the distortion of visual perception. Now, add to this distorted view the limited field of view of an observer on a boat. If observers are on a ship with a high deck or use a drone, they can get a much clearer picture of a fish. But all the observers were on boats that were small compared to the size of the fish. So, the limited field of view made it difficult for sailors sitting just a few feet above the water to accurately distinguish the shape and length of a fish. I am not trying to discredit these sightings. I am just trying to say that it is possible that these reports are related to other large shark species that are similar in size to Megalodon. The average size of a Megalodon was around 30 feet. Whale sharks can reach lengths of around 40 feet and have a distinctive wide and flat appearance. They're black with white spots on them. Basking sharks can also grow to almost the same size as Megalodon. Even though they are harmless and only feed on plankton, their giant body and triangular head may seem intimidating for people who see them for the first time. On the rare occasion when these beautiful creatures are spotted by beachgoers, they can easily be confused with a Megalodon by someone with an overactive imagination. A classic example is this photo that shows a beachgoer swims with a basking shark. But I saw this photo in several videos claiming that it was a Megalodon. Photos provide better evidence and make it easier to analyze the shark species. So I searched a lot, but didn't see any actual photo of a giant shark for any of these claims. It's understandable because photography was not as handy 50 years ago as it is today. So if Megs are out there, we should hear more recent stories with photos and videos accompanying them. Actually, there are several video recordings that show a giant shark. A very recent video shows a massive shark that is lurking around a tall ship off the coast of Massachusetts, and it was shared on social media in late May of 2021. The shark was really massive, but John Chisholm from the New England Aquarium says it was a basking shark. Another video recorded in the Pacific Ocean's Mariana Trench at a depth of close to 1 mile shows a giant shark, which some claims estimate to be 197 feet long. The video shows us something that looks like a camera feed with a strange structure on the ocean floor, and this huge fish suddenly comes in from the right side of the camera. After watching the video, a couple of questions came to mind. If the video is recorded 1 mile deep in the Mariana Trench, how can we see the ocean's floor? We know that the Mariana Trench is the deepest part of the world's oceans, with depths reaching nearly 7 miles. Therefore, if the camera is only 1 mile deep, we shouldn't be seeing the ocean floor. How did someone measure the shark? Although we do see this fish for an extended period, accurately measuring it is challenging because there's nothing in view to provide a scale reference. And estimating size without a known object or marker for comparison can lead to significant inaccuracies. When I researched the video, I came across a YouTube video posted in Bill's channel almost 10 years ago. The video explains that the footage is real, but the provided information is not. It is a piece of a video that was shot by Japanese scientists in early 2000s in Suruga Bay, which is not far away from the Mariana Trench. And in an article that was published in a Russian journal, Pravda, the scientists identified the fish as a 23-foot-long Pacific sleeper shark, which is one of the largest species of sharks in the oceans. But because it spends most of its time in deep oceans, it is rarely seen. Another video was recorded in 2014 in British Columbia, Canada. The video shows a huge shark that passes a fisherman's boat. The shark looks enormous, and people say that it is a Megalodon. But look at this shark. It is a basking shark, and I believe that this view of the shark from the top is totally similar to what the fisherman recorded. But it is sometimes hard to see the correct colors inside the water from a boat, so I might be wrong. The next one is a video recorded during a rescue operation. You may not see it the first time you watch the video, but there is a dark silhouette moving under the water. I wasn't able to authenticate the video, but something convinces me that it may not be a Meg. If it is a Meg, there is a piece of food readily available for it. Why doesn't this aggressive beast do anything to snatch an easy bite? There are many other videos, but these videos do not seem to be authentic, and I will talk about them. But before that, let's check 2 other sources. Satellites scan the Earth's surface all the time, so there might be a photo of a Megalodon captured by them. In fact, there are a few photos that may be a Megalodon. The first satellite image from a giant shark was caught near the coast of Papua New Guinea. Based on the scale, some people argue that it is close to 60 feet long. It's not easy to tell what shark it is, but the shape of its head looks kind of similar to a basking shark. The issue is that the largest recorded basking shark is only 40 feet long, which is significantly smaller than the 60-foot claim, if that measurement is accurate. I checked a few more satellite images, but they all seem impossible to interpret, and I didn't see any convincing argument about the image being a Meg. During the Cold War, the US and Soviet Union used sonar equipment to scan the oceans for spying on each other. They did collect any available data, including wildlife information. For example, the US recorded a sound with a unique frequency that later turned out to be a whale that was calling for other whales. Its call frequency was unique, so everybody believed that it is a lonely whale, maybe the last whale of an extinct species, calling for other whales. Also, sonars recorded a horrifying sound that for a while, the internet community thought was from an unknown creature called a bloop. But later, it turned out to be the sound of icebergs cracking and shifting. I tried to find if there had been a recording of a strange sound or volume that was unexplained and could probably be attributed to a giant shark. Very recently, in September 2022, a team of Rhode Island shark experts were shocked to see an image that appeared to be a 50-foot-long Megalodon on Sonar when they were on a research trip. They also estimated its weight to be around 40 tons, but it soon turned out that it wasn't a Megalodon. The Atlantic Shark Institute later announced that its experts tracked the massive figure for several minutes, and it began to shape-shift as it moved closer to the vessel. It turned out to be a large school of Atlantic mackerel that hung around the boat for about 15 minutes. So far, I have used several measures to see if Megs are real, and neither could come to a conclusion. But several video footages are circulating the internet that show seemingly real evidence of a deep sea monster. The problem with these videos is that it is easy to put together a fake documentary and odd YouTube videos in recent years. Fictional documentaries started in 2013 with Megalodon, The Monster Shark Lives, and continued with other episodes like Megalodon, The New Evidence, The Shark of Darkness, Wrath of Submarine, and Voodoo Shark. These documentaries are so entertaining, but they are fictional and fabricated, and at the same time, they don't disclose their fictional nature. So many people believe in what they say. They fake evidence. For example, the marine biologists that gave their expert opinions on the shows are not real people. The fictional biologist Colin Drake is played by the actor Darren Meyer, and Madeleine Joubert is played by the actress Juliana Venter. Even the witnesses on these shows are actors and actresses. Also, they use CGI to produce scenes that never existed. For example, for the whale with its tail bitten off in Hawaii in 2009, the whale photo and video never existed. The declassified U-boat image from 1942, showing a giant fin and tail in the background, is fake. A journalist found the original footage, which shows that the shark was added to the photo for the show. Also, the people fishing near Cape Town whose boat was attacked by the Megalodon died in April of 2013 never existed. This is a completely fabricated story, complete with actors as the crew and newscasters. Besides these fictional changes in the evidence, there are many more stories that have spread on the internet and use fabricated evidence to prove that Meg exists. One of them is the reports of the huge 9-foot great white being eaten whole by an unknown super predator. The story says that a research team in Australia tagging great white sharks found one of their tracking devices washed up on shore only 4 months after tagging a great white. When analyzing the data, they found a temperature rise and a sudden 1,900-foot drop in depth. The only logical explanation was the shark was eaten by something, and the tracking device was in the predator's digestive tract. This part is true, but the interpretation often points to a sea monster that is probably a Meg as the predator. But if one looks at the science, there is a much more clear explanation. A larger great white ate the shark. The researchers even say this, but most of the internet articles stopped before mentioning what scientists believe. Instead, the headlines circling the internet were incredibly skewed, and they mention a huge 9-foot great white, a mystery sea monster, and a new super predator. A more scientifically approved evidence can be a recent remainder or a fossil. Shark's skeleton is made of cartilage, and because cartilage is relatively soft, it doesn't fossilize very well. So scientists have used their teeth to study their evolution. Megalodons continuously shed teeth, so if they are around, it shouldn't be hard to find recent teeth. In fact, scientists found very fresh Meg teeth. In 1873, HMS Challenger found supposedly fresh Megalodon teeth. These teeth were found in the South Pacific. The famous zoologist Vladimir Chernesky dated them in 1959 and found that they are, in fact, fresh teeth that belonged between 11 and 24,000 years ago, which is very recent. I say recent because scientists believe that Megs went extinct between 2.5 and 3.6 million years ago. So after this finding, cryptozoologists said that Megs could have survived the claimed extinction. But the fact was that the teeth looked fresh because they were well preserved by a thick, mineral crust precipitate of manganese dioxide. So they had a lower decomposition rate and retained a white color during fossilization. That was the reason that manganese dioxide dating in 1950s identified a Megalodon teeth sample to be only a few thousand years old. This type of manganese dioxide dating is now considered invalid, and modern dating methods indicate the teeth are eroded from a Miocene formation, which is between 23 and 5 million years old. Any source that uses the evidence that teeth pulled from the South Pacific are 11,000 to 24,000 years old is purposely misleading the reader by using invalid and outdated evidence. So, still the most recent teeth fossils are at least 2 million years old. Now let's look at their existence from a scientific perspective. Unlike many sharks, Meg was a warm water animal, and their fossils are only found in ancient, warm water oceans and seas, not near the poles. They used nursing grounds that were near shore, because juveniles would live and grow there. If Megs were alive today, we would be seeing them all the time. But there is a theory with a counter-argument that explains Megs might live in the deep ocean. Meg, a novel of deep terror that is written by Steve Alton, theorizes that a small population of Megs survived extinction by living in the Mariana Trench. Because they are warm-blooded, they can't survive in the cold, dark depths of the deep ocean. But the book explains that hydrothermal vents in the Mariana Trench release warm, mineral-rich water and create localized, warmer environments that could sustain the warm-blooded Meg. This is pretty much the core argument in many movies that were made based on this novel. The Mariana Trench is one of the least explored parts of the ocean, and we don't know much about it, so Meg might live there without us detecting them. Even though we haven't explored much of the Mariana Trench, several missions have successfully reached its deepest part, the Challenger Deep. These specialized submarines that can stand immense pressure and cold temperatures have recorded a desert-like environment there. The marine life in these depths is very basic and mainly consists of microorganisms, certain types of crustaceans, and small invertebrates. A warm-blooded active predator like a meg would require a substantial and steady food supply to survive. But the deep ocean environment, with its extreme pressure and near-freezing temperatures, does not support the abundance of large prey that meg needs. So scientists do not agree with the novel's theory. Another theory explains that oceans are very vast, and we have only explored a small fraction of them. So, megs may still exist in a corner. But researchers who have tracked megs over different geological periods don't agree with this theory. These scientists explain that the fossil record for meg's teeth is nearly complete. So we have a very nice evolutionary history of the megatoothed sharks that starts in the Cretaceous period. As time goes on, there is a clear fossil record of slight changes in the shark teeth. Over time, cutting edges become serrated, the crown gets broader, and the overall size of the teeth increases. Each change of the megatoothed shark represents a unique species, until the largest megatooth that belongs to meg. There might be debate over exact species names, but everyone does agree the fossil record is very clear and complete when it comes to the evolutionary history of megs. And this record clearly shows the extinction of meg. Fossils of meg are plentiful, but at about the mid-end Pliocene, they vanish. Also, there are no transitional fossils that show a gradual change of megs into something else. There are no fossils of meg or similar creatures after some point in the evolution history. So, the only valid conclusion based on the study of fossils is that meg became extinct. Now that you have watched the video about an apex predator till the end, I am sure that you will like my video that talks about how orcas hunt great white sharks and if great whites can fight back and defend themselves. Also, if you liked my research and the work I put into this video, please support me by liking and subscribing.